Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners, and Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Africa, you know we love the Big C tribe. We also got some people following from Egypt. Love you following the Big C Sports Show. We love them in Canada, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful October 25th, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we've got to change the climate, as they would say. It's damn cold down here today.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it goes from hot to cold in a hurry. And, you know, and that cold is sort of like what we get from our administration, from the White House, Charlton.
Wow.
You think about, we have two former presidents that were just had death threats, and we got no consideration call from the White House to these former heads of state, Charlton.
Wow.
Normally you call them and give your condolences and
well,
let them know that everything is okay from a government perspective.
Yep.
That you have the CIA and the FBI on top of this, Charlton.
Yep.
But even more so, that's just the courtesy and professional consideration that you give for these men that have given so many years of their service to this nation, Charlton.
Yeah.
But instead, you're making it about yourself. But the rhetoric that you have spewed is the reason for this occurring, and his administration is trying to deny that.
Yeah.
But every one of those letters, whether it was George Soros, Robert De Niro, Maxine Waters, President Clinton, President Bush, Vice President Biden, you know, all of these individuals, Charlton, were harsh critics of the president.
Yep.
And so CNN, John Brennan, all of these people have spoken in negative connotations.
Yeah.
And so because they haven't backed the president, and the president has spewed this rhetoric, you would have thought if the president did not have some underlying current in this, he would have canceled his event last night in Wisconsin, Charlton.
Oh, yeah.
Based on national security.
Yeah.
But he knew where the base of these threats came from, Charlton.
Yes.
Because any time any president would have been considered in harm's way, they would have walked away from being outside in a public event, Charlton, with these heinous acts being carried out on U.S. soil. All presidents would have done that. But because he wants to go out and continue to spew this rhetoric, Charlton, saying that we must find a way to have togetherness, and then in 5 minutes later, he's back to his normal rhetoric, Charlton, it's just an embarrassing, appalling scenario that we have in our administration.
Yeah, and we all know it's out there. It's all fair and love and war, but we have people from all over the world chiming in about what's going on in our nation's capital. I do want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. I just want to say, you know, we talk about Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, and we talk about that, and sometimes people might say, well, they're just talking. It's not just talk. I just want to bring up a couple of people. Zion Tadisi, an Ethiopian woman, owns a restaurant in Northern California, now following Big C Sports on the Big C Sports show. Talking to her today, and several other people that I'm just proud of knowing people, Big C. I'm proud of not only just being a sports show, and we're not just a show that says we're going to talk about sports. I want to thank Michael Harris as well, because he's done some things, and Leah Johnson, some just people that I've met over the years of doing the sports show, and all the things that you talk about, Big C. It's important that we start off our show not just talking about Big C. Who won the game? Did you see if the Lakers won last night? Do you think that some player's going to score a touchdown or hit a home run? I'm really impressed with that, and I want to pay homage to them, because I learned a few things. Big C, you've traveled all over the country, in fact, all over the world, and I just want to get your thoughts on how do you see America from the outside looking in, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, Charlton, you know, in past years, everybody has looked at America as this iconic figure, Charlton. the place to be, where everything happens, and it still does.
Yeah.
But we also were looked at as a country of unity and opportunity. That's how the outside world has always viewed America. When you're on the road, Charlton, and you tell people where you're from,
yep.
they're like, wow, I want to go there someday.
Right.
I want to go to this particular state someday. You know, tell me what it's like. This has always been the thought of America, Charlton, whether you're down in the islands, whether you're, you know, in Europe or Asia, Charlton. Everyone has always looked at it like that.
Yep.
But now I can imagine, because my travels are not as extensive as they used to be, Charlton, how people look at our country, how they look at all the negativity that goes on in this country. And it's like it even came out yesterday that the president is so brazen.
Yeah.
Is that he still uses his own personal cell phone.
Oh, really?
I remember when Obama went to the White House and they took away his BlackBerry. You know, he felt like he was in a black hole at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, but Trump would not relinquish his personal iPhone.
Our tax return.
And it came out yesterday
yeah.
That the Russians and the Chinese are spying on his phone calls.
Yeah.
Because he's calling all the old hacks that he was used to dealing with in the past. So you think about all the information that they have on him when it came down to Michael Cohen, Charlton.
Yeah.
When it came down to the other gentleman that his campaign, you know, manager that was convicted.
Yeah.
All of those people that he was, Manafort, all these people that he was having conversations with. And he's still having conversations with, like Sean Hannity from Fox.
Yeah.
And everybody from Fox News. He's on this uncrypted iPhone talking to these people. So you think about the leverage that the Russians have on him, the Chinese have on him when it comes to negotiations.
Yeah.
These are other things, Charlton, that make our country unsafe.
That is so true, Big C. And I just think about that, talking about United States of America and how sometimes we kind of get a myopic view of the world. We think that we're so, you know, jingoistic that everything's about our nationality. But I just want to go back and pay homage to some of my friends, the Ethiopian friends that follow Big C Sports now. And they talked about the new news out of Africa. The new president of Ethiopia, the birthplace of civilization, is a black woman. The only woman of the 55 nations in the African continent. And you think about it, too, the first Christian nation on earth was in Ethiopia. United States talks about in God we trust, and we hear all that rhetoric coming out of the White House, the dog whistles, that, see, people across the pond and on the African continent, they pay as much attention to American politics as many people in the United States. That's why I refuse to be just a dumbed-down, sycophant sports show talking about athletes, how big and strong somebody is. I learned about the restoration of the Ethiopian Ocean today. Things that are happening in our own backyards. People in Africa are telling me about, Big C, and here I am, an American citizen. I just want to add that to our broadcast brethren. And we say this to everybody. Not everybody's going to see the world the same. Some people think, just give me the numbers, just give me the sports. That's for somebody else. That's for the dumbed down audience. I want to just thank people from all over the world. And when I mean this, how many black men in this country have their own sports show, number one? And I mean that. And how many are not sycophants to mainstream saying, hey, boy, only give me the scores, boy, or you're going to be without a job, boy. I'm so impressed that people from the African continent follow Big C Sports. We've been telling people, Big C, what does that mean to you? All life came from that continent. That's the only continent that Jesus Christ ever walked, the continent of Africa. Now Big C Sports has more followers in Africa as we do in the United States. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I'm just, you know, honored and privileged to be able to be on the airwaves to give a message, Charlton, that's unpolluted. Something that's pure and genuine.
Yeah.
And people, regardless of where you are in the world, is that you can find something from what we say that touches your life and that you recognize on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We don't appeal to everybody,
nope.
Nor does anyone else, Charlton.
Nope.
But those that we do appeal to and that do follow us, we appreciate it gratefully, and that we can be impactful in their lives, Charlton.
Yeah.
Is that we can give them some insight on a daily and weekly basis that may bring out something that they did not even realize within themselves, Charlton.
Yeah.
A lot of people go along on a daily grind and not recognize what's good out there with them or about them.
Yeah.
But sometimes a spark that comes from someone, Charlton, regardless of where it is in the world, we may see here a news story. We may see a news clip, Charlton.
Yep.
We may just see a person passing on the street, and they remind you of something.
Yeah.
And it also kickstarts your mind to become active.
Yeah.
It's like when we're talking about the voting rights, Charlton.
Yeah.
That everybody should be talking about in every broadcast, regardless of what it is, whether it's sports, whether it's news. It should be 50% of all those news broadcasts, but it's not, because they talk about other stories. But is there anything else more important in America right now than voting over the next 2 weeks? No, it isn't.
No.
It's not, because it's going to change the way your life goes for the next 4 to 6 years.
Yeah.
That's what voting over the next 2 weeks will do. It will dictate what occurs in your life over the next 4 to 6 years. And that's what people don't understand.
Yeah.
So, you know, whether it's here in America or whether it's somewhere else around the world, Charlton,
yep.
If we're telling people to get out and vote, you have to look how important it is to you. If we're telling you to score, then it's something that occurred that day or the day before, Charlton.
Yeah.
But that voting lasts for 4 to 6 years.
Yeah. I tell you what, it's so important. We talk about voter obstruction and how athletes can be a part of that mainstream media, because we know that's where most young kids of color see black men. I remember back in the day, I was talking to a gentleman that went to the University of Oklahoma, and we talked about we were joking that I said, you know what, a lot of times when guys from Oklahoma get drafted, they take a pay cut, and he laughed, Big C. He said, yeah, that's true. We wonder where they get all those fancy cars coming from these farms, but by the time they play for the Sooners, Big C, a lot of them good old boys, they live very well. But I just want, and that his name is also Deepak Sharma. Again, he's from India. Follow him, Big C Sports, on the Big C Sports Network. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that, Big C, because you know that we got some pushback from some good old boys that said, you know what, I remember there was a good old boy from down south, and we were talking to him, with all your 40-plus years in broadcast, you can broadcast like you breathe. It's second nature to you. But this good old boy about half your age said, if you guys pay me some money, I can teach you how to have your own show. Remember that about 3 years ago, Big C? He said, if I can teach you how to breathe. And some people paid that guy, and he's well known. No, we didn't. We just thanked him for his time, but we learned how to breathe on our own, Big C. And I just want to pay homage again to my friends from the African continent, talking about Addis Ababa. There are churches carved out of solid rock. In Africa, the Lost Ark is in Ethiopia, the birthplace of all civilization. You know how we tell people to Google Mendel and also Dr. Leakey? We had that conversation on where our life came from. It's so important to know where we come from as a people, and I'm saying this because of this. In Georgia, a great football state, that's the state of this year's Super Bowl, the beautiful Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It has that big bird that Big C's been trying to catch that bird for a long time, but you need a stronger net, Big C. I think it's made of solid steel or aluminum. But with the vote in Georgia being obstructed by merely African Americans, there are people who are from Ethiopia that talk about that, and some of our own brethren in America don't talk about it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I look at the NFL as one of the major clogs in that, Charlton, by allowing Georgia to do what they're doing.
Yep.
You know, they stepped in on the state of Arizona with the obstruction that they had
right.
on the Martin Luther King holiday. But you see how the landscape of the NFL has changed now. You have clear voting obstruction going on by an attorney general of the state.
Yep.
The NFL can move a Super Bowl in a heartbeat. You know, there's plenty of stadiums around that would take the game, Charlton.
Yeah.
And yes, it would be an economic hardship on the city and a state. But the NFL, if they were to do the right thing, they would do that to Atlanta right now, Charlton. But you have the attorney general that's taking votes and throwing them out of the roll, Charlton.
Yeah.
If you were an early voter in Georgia, which they've had over 100,000 of them, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're talking about purging those, taking some of those votes and throwing them away.
Over 100,000? 100,000?
Over 100,000.
Wow.
And they're talking about, you don't even have to let the people know that their vote is not going to count, because all they're doing is an eyeball test.
Wow.
And they can have some 78-year-old person sitting there looking and say, well, this signature doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
And throw it out. And anyone nowadays that knows, when you go get your driver's license, you sign on an electronic pad, generally with your finger.
That's right.
Not a stylus, with your finger. And so when you sign on a piece of paper with a ballpoint pen, yes, it looks different. And so that person can take the eyeball test and say, well, I don't think these are the same person.
Yeah.
And throw out your vote, and they do not have to notify you that your vote was not counted. That's how the Jim Crow states have operated against minorities, mainly African Americans, for decades.
Yeah.
When they say, okay, they're free and they have voting rights, we will find a way to take their vote away from them. Even though they're legal citizens, they're taxpayers,
yep.
They've done things by law, we'll still take their vote away because we don't want them to vote, and we don't want them to have a say-so in the laws of the state, because that's how we can control them.
Yep, that's an incredible Big C. So I just love the fact that not only are we sports and we cover world news, we cover things that are real. I really do appreciate you. Sometimes I thought you were just joking, Big C, you know, because you read a lot, and I Google a lot, but when you read, it tends to stick with your brain. When you Google, there's always another message to Google, so I'm going back to the reading method too, Big C, but I Google and read at the same time, called speed Google, and I know you speed read, I speed Google, Big C, the same thing, we get to the same point. I just tend to get there faster, but yours takes longer. I want to talk about speed. Last night in baseball, America's greatest pastime, allegedly, Major League Baseball, World Series. Can't get much bigger than that. Last night when I saw the Boston Red Sox and the LA Dodgers, they put on a great show in Beantown. There's something about Fenway Park. Yeah, it's rustic. Does it smell good? No. It's not as pristine as some of the beautiful ballparks, even the new Yankee Stadium or AT&T in San Francisco. But Big C, you talked about this many times. There's something about the crowd when it's cold and they're all liquored up, Big C, as they do often in Boston. And them good old boys from California, they just seem to not be able to stomach the onslaught of when you have 2 outs and they start giving up more hits. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Johnson, when you look at Boston throughout their run through the playoffs and the World Series, they are the best 2-out hitting team in all of baseball.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at the runs they scored, even last night, Charlton, they scored with 2 outs,
yeah.
4 runs.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. You know, pitchers have a tendency to relax once they get 2 outs.
Yeah.
Then, okay, all I got to do is get the ball over the plate, get the ball down, and they hit it on the ground, let my infielders get it.
Right.
But that hasn't been the case with Boston, Charlton. This has a lineup that just gravitates to that 2 outs, 2 strikes, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's when they become very honed on the ball. And when you look at the game last night, you have to take your hat off to David Price. This is his second outstanding outing in this year's playoffs, Charlton, his last 2 back-to-back games.
Yeah.
Last night they got 6 innings out of him, 6 solid innings, and that's what I figured that they would get out of him with 6 innings, Charlton.
Yeah.
He gave up 2 runs, but he was masterful, Charlton. He took his time. And we talked about that tactic about not pitching fast.
Yep.
And if you look at the time of David Price between his pitches where he thought about what he was going to do, being very meticulous, but also in that, Charlton, you're cooling down the batter.
Yeah.
And yes, both teams are playing in that inclement weather back in Boston, Charlton. But those Dodgers are not accustomed to being out there taking the bat at 40 degrees and going to home plate.
Yep.
That's a foreign country to them right there.
That's the only thing.
And so you could tell the difference, but when you look at the Dodgers, that's a team that's run by analytics.
Yeah.
And I know that the manager, Dave Roberts, feels real bad, Charlton. Here it is. Could be up for manager of the year and back-to-back World Series.
Yeah.
But he has some guy sitting up in the press box running analytics saying, well, because you got these left-handed pitchers, you know, we can't put our left-handed bats in the lineup.
You got to play them.
Because they're not going to fare well against them.
You got to play them, see? You got to play them.
So you took your top 4 home run hitters, Charlton, and kept them on the bench last night until the 7th inning.
Yeah.
You think about that. You put yourself in a hole because you have somebody saying analytics, and your buddy John Gruden, you know, is like that also.
Yeah.
He don't believe in analytics.
No.
But Dave Roberts has got his team to the World Series, and you got a guy that's playing analytics, keeping the best players on the Dodgers team on the dugout.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's almost like going to a fight with your best fighter. And you know they train where the southpaw, they're going to train guys that fight the Olympics, guys that fight in different clubs. when you get into the ring, you got to take your best. You can't say, well, you know, this guy's a southpaw, so I got to fight a different strategy. No, you got to bring to the dance, or is it dance who you bring to the dance, or bring who you bring? Is it bringing a dance? Something about bringing a dance and do the dance. You take the person you came with. Basically, that make any sense?
Well, you got to go with what got you there.
Yep.
And that's the guys with the big sticks.
Yep.
You didn't make it to the World Series, Charlton.
Right.
You know, worrying about who couldn't hit.
Right.
You got there because you had guys that could hit, Charlton.
Yeah.
Yes, every team has platoon players. But you look at this Boston lineup, Charlton, the guys that took them to the dance are out there dancing.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
They're swinging the bat.
Yeah.
They're rounding the bases. We don't get that from Los Angeles.
No.
And so not only are the analytics destroying the Dodgers, but they're destroying an opportunity for a tremendous World Series.
Yeah.
And you look at the Boston Red Sox, Charlton, when they're up in a World Series, they've only lost once in their history, okay?
Yeah.
So here in their modern history, they're up 2 games on the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So basically, this series is over, Charlton. They will not come back to Boston and finish off this World Series. They're going to do it out there in Los Angeles.
Well, I tell you what, there's a lot of fear that it might happen, but as you mentioned, you take your big bats, you put them in the dugout. It's like they are the ones at home watching TV. It just doesn't make any sense. There's always a chance for a comeback, but it's hard to go ahead and win 4 out of the next 5 games. I don't care who you are, especially against a team like Boston that pitches so well. So the Red Sox get the second win over the Dodgers, a 4-2 victory. David Price, the victory. The Sox have now won 6 games in a row. I want to get your thoughts, too, because there's something about that crowd in Boston, and I know everyone brags about home field advantage or an NBA home court advantage, but baseball home field advantage, I think they give you the home field advantage because they're not a quiet crowd. They're a crowd that plays, or they cheer like they're part of the team, like they're that 9th man, Big C, that we always talk about, the 12th man in football. I know a lot of teams in the SEC, they do play 12 players on defense. That's why they win so much. But just if you can give a shout out and a challenge to the fans in LA. You know, we drink a lot of wine in LA, Big C. We do it. We're the nip tuck society. They got to have some people nip tucking their pride and don't come out in a 3-piece suit watching the game. Come out in some sweats and some blue jeans and really cheer for the Dodgers. Do you think we have a chance of seeing that in LA? Or are people still more concerned with how they look, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, first of all, you got to get that late arriving crowd in Los Angeles based on traffic and the start time of the game. You know, the electricity that you have on the West Coast, you know, it's almost like a low-voltage slam, okay?
Yeah.
It's very dim. You can run it with a battery.
Yeah.
You don't need that 110 extension cord to put it in there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you get, you know, because LA expects to have stuff.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't come, they're like, oh, well, there's next year. They always look at it from that mentality.
Yeah.
It's not an appreciative society out there on the West Coast, even when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
When you look at the stadiums, they're not full, regardless of the sport, Charlton.
No.
They're not always packed. And so, you know, people have a history on the East Coast of sports. When you look at the Red Sox, and here's a team that's been there since the first day of baseball, it seems like.
Yeah.
And so that legacy where you don't get new season ticket holders, Charlton, they're put in wheels and, you know, they're passed down through generations in a family to have a seat at a place like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's something that's appreciated versus, well, I buy myself a personal seat license if I don't feel like going out to shop my seat.
Yeah.
That's what you get on the West Coast. So those people in California, they're so used to, as you say, sitting back with a little wine, a little cheese, little, you know, vodka martini, and relaxing.
Right.
They're serving sushi at Dodger Stadium. You know, they're not serving hot dogs.
Hey, don't knock sushi till you try it, especially deep fried. There's a restaurant up in San Francisco, and I can't say the name because they didn't pay the bill yet, Big C, but they have what's called Godzilla rolls, and it's some deep fried sushi with some of that good old boy vibranium sauce. They won't say what the vibranium is, but it sure tastes good, Big C. All I know is they tend to sell out when I show up at that restaurant. But even people out here, it's just not the same passion, even though there's a lot of front-running crowds. I do want to get your thoughts because of that comment that you made on the West Coast. And we know all over the offseason that talk of LeBron James coming out to Los Angeles. King James going to turn things around for the Lakers. where the Lakers are right now at the bottom of the pack. They're the bottom of the heap. In fact, the Kings of Sacramento have a better record than the LA Lakers with LeBron James. I remember the mothership. They flew out the crew, and they were all going to come out here and tell us, I know, let me tell you something. I know about Jay. You know, that guy that talks like he knows everybody at the same time. They're never on the show with him. But I wish everybody fair. But the Lakers finally got off the snide last night. They got their first win in Phoenix, of all places, where it took a long time to even pass a Martin Luther King holiday, Big C. But they did it last night. LeBron James didn't even have to play in the fourth quarter. That's like a lot of pressure off of LeBron James, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, you got to win 1 to win 50, okay?
Yeah.
And so they're almost there.
Yep.
They got to increase that winning percentage, Charleston, because you can't win 25% of your games and expect to make the playoffs in the NBA.
No.
You know, LeBron James was outscored by 2 of his teammates last night. You don't get that often.
Yeah.
You know, Stevens and McGee both outscored James last night. No one would have saw that.
Yeah.
He only had 19 points in that game, Charleston. But, you know, as we talked about, Phoenix was the worst team in the NBA last year.
Yeah.
They lost guard Devin Booker with a pulled hammy, Charlton, in the third. So that just opened the floodgates for the Lakers at that point.
Yeah.
But, you know, a desperate needed victory, not a much needed victory, Charlton, a desperately needed victory.
Yeah.
This was a team that was floundering. And everybody said, well, you know, when are the Lakers going to win? But they finally won. Like I said, they got that refrigerator off their back.
Yeah.
But that's only one game, Charlton, out of 82.
Yep.
They got to find a way to put a streak together. They got to get some continuity. Were they a better team without Rondo and Ingram and in the game, Charlton?
Yeah.
They won their first game without him.
Yep.
Brandon Ingram, I don't know if he fits with what the Lakers do right now.
Why?
He could be great trade bait. Wherever LeBron has been, Charlton, they've always facilitated a trade at some point in the season before the trade deadline.
Yeah.
You look at what they did last year in Cleveland. LeBron wants players that fits what he does. Even though Magic is running the team, LeBron wants players that fit what he does, and Magic will recognize that after a while. I see Brandon Ingram being gone by the trade deadline, Charles.
Yeah, he's trying to fight himself out of the LA Big C, no pun intended. Blake Griffin 2 nights ago goes for 50 against, you know, I think about it, went for 50 in the game for Detroit. Last night, Steph Curry goes for 51 in a blowout win. The Warriors beat the Wizards 144-122. Just being over in San Francisco, seeing how it's such a great city for sports. All of the Bay Area is great for sports. But to see last night, again, at the Coliseum or Core Arena, Steph Curry, his 51 comes easy. Big C, he didn't even play the entire game, but there's something about him. It's like he pulls back just so his other teammates can get involved. A guy that can go like that, that's what Whoop was doing night in and night out. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I guess you could just say it was Steph being Steph.
Yeah.
You know, here it is. He scores 51 points. He only took 33 shots in the game, Charlton.
Yeah.
He hit 11 three-pointers. And you think about that, Charlton. He didn't play the fourth quarter.
Nope.
Think about the damage that he could do on an NBA court, Charlton, if he was always playing 4 quarters. I mean, you equate that. LeBron played 3 quarters last night, got 19.
Yeah.
Steph played 3 quarters, got 51.
51.
You know, if he could ever play an entire game, Charlton, having a hot hand like he had last night.
Yeah.
That 82 points, that 81 points that Kobe Bryant put up would be in peril. I don't know if he could get to the 100 that Wilt did, but he could. I think he could surpass what Kobe Bryant did, Charlton, with his 81-point night.
Yeah.
But, you know, it just shows. Here's a guy who's been a 2-time MVP in the NBA.
Yeah.
And if he continues to play this season the way he's gotten off the snide, Charlton, he potentially become a 3-time winner of an MVP in the NBA. And he's the only unanimous winner in the history of the league, Charlton.
Well, I tell you what, those are good stats to put up, Big C. I'll tell you one thing I appreciate about Steph Curry. He's a great player. He's also a person who's a great spokesperson. He's a good athlete, plays golf. His mother's a good athlete. We know his father, Dale, was a great NBA player as well. Played more than a decade in the NBA. So when you have that tutelage and that pedigree, you got to be great. So congratulations to Steph Curry. Plus, I love his last name. In fact, I think the last name Curry is one of the best last names in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We want to go up north, across the border. The Toronto Raptors, Big C, they won 5 in a row since acquiring the great Kawhi Leonard, who poured in 35 points last night in a 112-105 victory over the Timberwolves. If Curry only poured in 35 points, he'd be asking for the chance to get back in the game. He was just finishing up. That's when Curry was warming up, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charles, when you look at the Raptors, at the beginning of the season, all the talk was about the Celtics walking right through the Eastern Division, having the best team in the division.
That's right.
And second would have been the Sixers. Everyone thought that, when they got rid of Lacey in Toronto, that all of a sudden that team would fall apart. Charlton, they've gathered themselves back together. They brought in Kawhi Leonard. Everyone talked about, what is he going to be?
Yeah.
Well, he's the player that he was and more in San Antonio.
Yeah.
He has an open reign now, Charlton, to be that full-fledged basketball player. He's not under restriction. And that 35 points, last night proved it. Plus having the Raptors off to a 5-0 start, Charlton, that's the best start in franchise history.
Yeah.
And so they're in first place in the East, just like they finished last year.
Yeah, I tell you what, there's something about the Lions. When you watch Lions hunt, I was talking to my friends from Africa, and we know that lions consider the king of the jungle. They also have this misconception that a lot of people think that Africa has people that are living back in the 1700s. That's a European facade. You can go to places in the United States and look like people are living in archaic times, Big C. Africa has some great cities, some great universities. Timbuktu, the oldest university in the world, therefore the oldest university in the universe, Timbuktu, on the continent of Africa. There's a lot of science that comes out of Africa, and everybody needs to know that, because oftentimes you don't hear that in the United States of America. I want to get your thoughts on the Big Cat and them good old boys in Minnesota that were having a hard time even getting along. Now they kind of got that attitude out of the way where they're not being reported on what people say, but they still fell to Toronto that everybody thought was going to fall off. Your thoughts on Minnesota? Is that the team we're going to see at the end of the year, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's a young team that's still developing. They have some disenchantment within the roster with Jimmy Butler still.
Yeah.
He's still out on the trade block. Houston made an offer for 4 future first-round draft picks to the Timberwolves. I don't know if it's going to entice him enough to let him go, Charlton, but he's still the best player on that team. It's a team when you got a lot of young egos with Anthony Towns and Wiggins, Charlton.
Yeah.
You have individual one-on-one players. They haven't bought into the team concept, regardless of what Thibodeau does, Charlton, is that until you can get young players to buy into what you're doing, and you're seeing that with the Lakers.
Yeah.
You had a lot of one-on-one players last year, and they've gone 4 games into this season to get a win.
Yeah.
The Timberwolves had disenchantment all through the preseason, Charlton, until, Butler came back. And I don't see that changing throughout the season. They finished 3rd in the West last year, Charlton, 3rd or 4th. But, I don't see them getting to that point this year with that roster.
Yeah, that's a good point, Big C. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with the Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league, when you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. My friend was telling me that over in India, they play cricket, Big C. That's what they consider in their world championship.
Well, we got them out in the yard.
You got
cricket
come here some
night, man. I mean, it's like an orchestra going on out there with the cricket.
I was telling, be careful when Big C comes to India. He can take a lot of crickets. There could be a shortage of crickets. Big C uses them the way we use baked beans. You hear of Boston baked beans? You ever hear of Boston baked chicken? Or would it be Big C's baked crickets? Big C, is that a menu on in your restaurants, Big C?
Well, Charles, we got chicken any way you want. And sometimes he's alive when he shows up.
Yeah, that's funny. Speaking of being alive, as we look at the world of the NHL, where you can really fight, Big C, and no one calls you out and saying that you're a bad influence on TV and in the kids, top-ranked teams in the NHL Eastern, the Atlantic Division, Toronto, Canada, the Maple Leafs, and I'm telling you, just give me your thought. The Maple Leafs 7-3 up in Toronto. I really would love to see another NBA team over on the west coast of Canada, maybe back in Vancouver. But Toronto doing great with NBA and also the NHL. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about the Maple Leafs, one of the original 6 of the NHL, they also have the NHL's leading scorer.
Yeah.
This is a long, twirling franchise, Charlton. It would be wonderful to see them back again in Stanley Cup Final to have one of the original 6 from Canada. I mean, we've had Montreal there over the decades, but Toronto has had a long drought, Charlton, and it would be great to see that big blue leaf out there on the national screen, Charlton, come Stanley Cup time.
That would make a lot of sense, Big C. The Metropolitan Division, Carolina, the Hurricanes are 5-3-1, and obviously they're named because the climate that comes through the Carolinas also, I hope that people are getting back on their feet. But give me your thoughts on the Hurricanes in the NHL Metropolitan Division, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, you know, the Hurricanes, Charlton, I mean, they have the greatest victory lap that you take in hockey, that everybody takes off from center court and goes smash into the glass, Charlton, at the end of the game, sort of like the Lambeau Leap. But, you know, they also were original Canadian team, Charlton. They came from, they were the Nordiques up in Quebec.
Quebec,
and they came from up there, but they've also won a Stanley Cup title since coming to the States, Charlton. You know, you leave Canada and you get to the richest of the United States, and you have enough financial backing to get you some free agent players, Charlton, and go out and win a Stanley Cup. So they're doing what they've done in the past, Charlton. They're staying on the top of the heap.
They're staying on top of the heap. As we go across to the West Coast, the Western Conference, I'm kind of messed up on my geography because Central Nashville Predators in the Central, they're 7-2. And I know they have, the South is not really known for NHL, you would think, but them good boys get liquored up. And when they eat their fish, they eat them on ice. They don't deep fry them, Big C. Nashville, your thoughts, Big C?
Well, just 2 years ago, Charlton, we saw the Predators in the Stanley Cup against the Pittsburgh Penguins. But Cindy Crosby and the Penguins, you know, came out on top of that one. And you know, Nashville, you know, when you think about a hockey hotbed, you know, Nashville doesn't come into the equation.
No, it doesn't.
You know, you think about a honky-tonk bar, you know, some country singers, Charlton,
some moonshine, moonshining, But, you know, it's all fair and love and war. They do have some good jazz down there and some really good deep-fried food from what I understand with the Surgeon General, Big C. I want to also look at the West Coast and the Pacific Division, the Vancouver Canucks. They're actually 6-4. We talk about Vancouver as a world-class city on the Pacific Rim. It would be so great to get NBA basketball back in Vancouver. They have the BC Lions, British Columbia Lions, for their NFL, actually the CFL football. And then you have, of course, the NHL is doing great there. Just talk about your thoughts on the Canucks. Can they challenge for Lord Stanley's Cup, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, just 4 years ago, they were in the Stanley Cups. I mean, like you say, a beautiful city. The Memphis Grizzlies of the NBA were there. That's where they started out their organization prior to moving down south. But, you know, when you think about the Pacific Northwest, that's what you have is Vancouver up there in the NHL. You know, you got Portland, you got Seattle, 2 great U.S. cities that are not involved in the NHL, trying to desperately get one in Seattle. But, you know, to have the Canadian teams involved, Charlton, in the Stanley Cup, I really like that. I mean, it's okay to see a U.S. team, Charlton, but to have one of those Canadian teams, I think that bodes well for all of hockey, just like having the Dodgers or the Yankees in the World Series, Charlton.
I agree. That's very well said, Big C. I want to swing down to the world of college football, where my friend was telling me at Oklahoma a lot of players made more money when they were at OU than when they got drafted in the NFL, Big C. Tonight, college football. Baylor at number 13, West Virginia. I know you've been high on West Virginia. I know you make a lot of runs to West Virginia, running from Sheriff Buford, T. Justice, Big C. So you put the Mountaineers ranked in the top 13. Your thoughts on Baylor? They took Texas to the wire last week, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a much-needed win for West Virginia. I mean, they had the one loss on that record already to Iowa State. They can't afford another loss. And as you say, Baylor played Texas down to the last play of the game last week. And so Will Greer, you know, has had a tough last couple of outings, Charlton, where he's thrown 7 interceptions in his last 2 games. He cannot afford that tonight against this opportunistic Baylor team.
That's a very good point, Big C. So we'll see if they can play much better this week. I want to get your thoughts. Appalachian State at Georgia Southern. That's the same Appalachian State that's D1 now, but there was a time when they went into Ann Arbor and beat Michigan and got their coach in a lot of trouble up there for the Wolverines. They've moved up now to D1. They're playing at Georgia Southern, which back in the day they had a player, I think his name was Tracy Ham. He was a running back, kind of the spread option, that run-pass option back in the day. I think that's back in the 80s, Big C. But that Georgia Southern program is a decent program. Appalachian State, your thoughts on that game, Big C?
Well, anybody only has to look past the first game of the season in college football where Appalachian State went up into Michigan in the Happy Valley and took that game to overtime, Charlton.
Yeah.
They've been a formidable program. I mean, when Penn State had to struggle in a overtime win against them, and they hung 46 points on Penn State.
Yeah, they did.
So they're an outstanding program, and they finally moved into the top 25. You think about that, a team that was once Division I AA, now in the NCAA's top 25, Charles.
Yeah, and when you think of the Georgia schools, the Georgia Tech versus Virginia Tech in an ACC battle, I want to get your thoughts. Georgia Tech's known as a running school, but they also play decent defense. Now, Virginia Tech, them good boys from Virginia, they've actually had success over the years, but no matter how much success they have, Big C, West Notre Dame knocked them off. I think they've shown the world they're good hype for the season, but they're like Clayton Kershaw. They get a lot of hype, but when it comes down to really needing it, they don't get it done, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, you look at Georgia Tech, Charlton, they're one of the few teams left in college football that runs the wishbone.
Yeah.
You know, the Naval and Army academies both run that, but Georgia Tech in major college football is one of the few teams that are left.
Yep.
You think about Virginia Tech, this is a much-needed win for them. That opening game win against Miami seemed so distant, Charlton.
Yep.
You know, when they were ranked, you know, Miami was, and now Virginia Tech at one point was ranked, and now they've fallen out of the rankings.
Yeah, it's always part of that, and even getting into the college football, some big college football games this weekend. Always excited about college football. We have number 2 Clemson at Florida State. Is that an upset alert because they know each other very well, Big C? Your thoughts?
Martin, that's one of those rivalry games where you got programs that don't like each other. I remember a few years ago when Jameis Winston won the Heisman Trophy, there was a pregame ruckus that took place out there in Death Valley when they were down there playing, and so that doesn't go away. You got a lot of players that are familiar with each other, Charlton, because the state's proximity that they've played against each other or with each other in high school, Charlton, and so that carries on over into the college ranks. You look at Clemson right now, Charlton, having a clear path of making the college football playoffs if they can get over this hurdle tonight against Florida State.
Makes a lot of sense, Big C. I look at Notre Dame, number 3, at Navy. Similar color uniforms. We know America loves the Naval Academy schools. Just give me your thoughts on Notre Dame. They're really on cruise control, I think, until they get to USC. That's one of those rivalry games when they'll come out to California. I remember the first time they did it by train back in the day. Now everybody flies. Notre Dame cannot pull off they cannot let up on a team like Navy. I remember that Navy, I believe that's the same program that took Oklahoma down on the wire. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at Navy coming in, one of the things that players are not accustomed to is the cut blocking that goes on every play. When you play the disciplined style of football that Navy plays in that wishbone attack. That becomes a problem for big, agile players, Charlton. They're used to playing that straightforward football. Now they got to play with their hands down all the time, Charlton, trying to keep those linemen off plays. I see Navy keeping this game close because Ian Book has struggled his past couple of games at quarterback for Navy, Charlton. I don't see Notre Dame making a switch at quarterback. But Notre Dame has that big playability that can help them win this game.
They can help them win this game. Also, Ian Book, he was out here in California, Northern California, when they had a bye week, Big C. If you're really competing for a national championship, why are you going home? You can't win a game at home. Going to your high school game when your team is in the top 10, you should be there running plays. Ask guys like Jerry Rice what repetition does for an athlete. That's where he should have been, Big C. I look at number 6, Texas, at Oklahoma State. Talk about a team that can knock you off your block is Oklahoma State. But Texas is on a roll, but they also seem like they're waiting for a hiccup. You know how sometimes you eat too much of that red, deep-fried beef, you start getting hiccups, Big C. You think Texas, they eat a lot of beef down in Texas. You think they can avoid the hiccup this week, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they're going to see a stiff passing attack from Gundy and his Oklahoma State offense, Charlton. They're going to throw the ball because that's the only chance that they have against Texas. They can't go out there and manhandle Texas. So they're going to put the ball in the air at least 50 times to see if they can keep this Texas defense on their heels. Texas is unsure whether Ellinger will be able to come in and play quarterback this week, Charlton. But they had a hard game against Baylor last week. Oklahoma State might be just a little bit better than what Baylor was.
I agree 100%, Big C. Florida, number 9 Florida at number 7 Georgia. Talk about the barbecue. I'm sure there's a shortage of pigs for them good old teams getting together. Give me your thoughts. These two teams are evenly matched. Georgia played in the national championship game last year. Florida has a lot of good athletes, though, Big C. Give me the feel. What's your feel on who has the edge in this game, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I like where the Gators are in this game, Charlton, because I look at a Georgia team, and this is a team that's a little nervous and on edge. They lost the game against LSU that everybody had them winning all year long.
Yep.
They went to Death Valley and got throttled, Charlton.
Yeah.
And so they're in an area where they're not used to being, having to come off of a loss during the middle of the season, Charlton, and having to get back on track against another ranked conference team.
Yeah.
Florida's playing in Florida at Jacksonville, the world's largest cocktail party, Charlton.
Yep.
So there might not be a lot of barbecue, but there'll be a lot of cups passed around.
There'll be a lot of Buford T. Justice sightings going on, them good old troopers down south, Big C. Make sure you buy your liquor from the concessions, not the guy out of his trunk, Big C. That's always going to help you. Oklahoma. You think about number 8 Oklahoma. They're Kansas State going to number 8 Oklahoma. Kansas State not a team that can really beat anybody, but these are games where you cannot let your guard down. Give me your thoughts on Oklahoma this soon as Big C.
Well, Charlton, how can you worry when you have Kyler Murray in your offensive backfield? I mean, here's a young man that's probably number 2 right now in the Heisman balloting. They scored over 30 points, Charlton, I think 35 consecutive games at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Their defense, they have a new defensive coordinator this week. Kansas State, I think, will be tested. I think they've taught the defensive players how to go up and tackle instead of trying to drag somebody down, Charlton.
Yeah.
I think you'll see a motivated Oklahoma defense.
Number 12, Kentucky versus Missouri. Missouri seems like they should be back in the Big 12 or the Big 8. They're not an SEC team. Give me your thoughts on Kentucky ranked number 12 versus Missouri. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Kentucky coming off their first loss of the season, Charlton. Missouri, though, has been a disappointment. I mean, Drew Lock came into this college campaign being one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the country, Charlton. I think he's fallen out of the top 5 thus far with his lack of performance at Missouri. Kentucky has a very solid running game. Coach Stoops has done a tremendous job in turning it around this program. Benny Snell, one of the top 5 running backs in the country, Charlton.
Yep.
I see Kentucky dominating this game.
Big C, I want to go out to the West Coast. You have Washington State that had a big win last week over Oregon, a team that was right in the driver's seat for challenging for the Pac-12 North and ultimately the Pac-12 championship. But they got had by Washington State. Are them good old boys up in Pullman still smarting? They have to go down to Stanford on the Forum, where they're going to face a team that's physical. I think this is a big opportunity for David Shaw's team to get back on track because they can have a 3-way tie for first place in the Pac-12 North. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got to look at the Wazoos. They have this little secret weapon called Minshaw, the quarterback that they have, Charlton, who's leading the nation in passing yardage. That's the equalizer. I don't know if Stanford has enough defensively to play against that vaunted passing attack that Washington State has. If you think about how Stanford struggled against Oregon before pulling out that victory in overtime, Oregon passed the ball up and down the field against them. This spread offense that Washington State runs with Mike Leach, Charlton, is much better than what Oregon did against Stanford, and I see Washington State in a blowout.
Well, Love is not running the ball well at all for Stanford. That might be a prediction that they don't want to hear in the farm, but they got to pay attention to Big C. We look at Texas A&M at Mississippi State. 2 good old boys down south. Who's going to eat the most barbecue, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you got an Aggie and a Bulldog. The dogs do eat meat, so they do that periodically. But Jimbo Fisher, when you think about Jimbo Fisher, he has the second toughest schedule in the country behind LSU and Ed Orgeron.
Yeah.
He's played the 2 number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the country.
Yep.
Not many coaches have that on their resume. Orgeron has played 4 top 10 teams, Charlton.
Yeah.
So, these 2 coaches have played well. I like A&M in this game.
Yes.
Recently, Mississippi State has not played well. They started out the season blazing, Charlton.
Yep.
With this young sophomore quarterback, Charlton. They took him out in lieu of this senior, and they haven't been the same.
Haven't been the same, Big C. Number 18, Iowa at number 17, Penn State. That Penn State whiteout game when they had Ohio State on the ropes, and ever since then they have not been the same, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, 2 losses on the season. Penn State is just playing for bowl positioning right now. Charlton, they had a tough game last week against Indiana.
Yeah.
You know, they're not the same team that everybody thought they were. McSorley has done his job. Just the rest of the team has just not been there on defense to deliver.
Hasn't been there on defense. Number 19, Oregon at Arizona down in the desert. Want to get your thoughts. Can Oregon make a bounce-back win? They went up to the Blues, playing a Washington State team that can pass. Now they're down in Arizona. We're a team that can run. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, Oregon should win this game. It's just a matter, you know, what does Cristobal do after the second loss of the season? This comes down to your coach.
Yeah.
You got to bring your team back together. You know, they had an opportunity to run the table, Charlton. He gave away a game at Stanford. He didn't have a team that was prepared for Washington State. Can he get them prepared for Oregon on a bounce-back weekend, Charlton?
That would be interesting to see, Big C. Last college game, Wisconsin, the Badgers at Northwestern. Them good up boys up there north, Big C. Wisconsin, you know, this is a team that started out very strong, but they kind of fallen off into obscurity, even though they'll have a good 9-win season, Big C. Your thoughts? Can they pull out a win at Northwestern?
Well, Taylor's running the ball solidly, Charlton, but this is one of those things that you face when you go to Northwestern. You're playing on that long grass, and with the moisture in the northeast, Charlton, this time of the year, the grass will be a little slick.
Yeah.
But those big horses that they got up front from Wisconsin on that offensive line, Charlton, they're like bulldozers. I see Taylor turning out at least 150 yards on the ground. As long as Hornibrook, the quarterback, doesn't throw any interceptions, Wisconsin should win.
And speaking of interceptions, the NFL today fired Hugo Cruz, an NFL official who missed the fall by I guess Russell Okung against the Cleveland Browns that led to a Charger touchdown. I just want to get your thoughts on why we get rid of players or coaches this time of the season. We're just at the midway point. It's almost as if they gotta fire somebody to take the pressure off of head coaches at times. Give me your thoughts, Big C.
Well, Charlton, this is the first time in the modern era that the NFL has ever fired an official mid-season. And you think about this, yes, that's one play. You know, he missed a false start by Russell Okung, the offensive tackle, from the Chargers, and that play led to a touchdown. Well, they didn't fire the official that missed the call with the headshot against Johnny Manziel.
No.
You know, that same week. We look at some of the egregious calls that the NFL has missed in some of these games this year, Charlton.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I find is most ironic, he was a minority official that they fired.
Isn't that something?
You know, and those are one of the few that are in the league, Charlton. That's a Hispanic. And they fired him at the end of Hispanic Heritage Month, which was ironic. But, you know, I felt that this was a bad, you know, move by the NFL perception-wise, Charlton, that you fired an official because he did not throw a flag on one play. And you look at every play in the NFL, Charlton, there can be a flag thrown, and they're not.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing that you say. When we say Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, but this, I don't hear of officials being fired because missing a call. You miss a call on every play. You could always call holding in the NFL. And when you think about missing calls, in the NFL you talk about coaches. The Raiders, John Gruden, Sherman with the Giants, both traded #1 draft picks this season. It's saying that they're in it to win it, and it's not a rebuilding process. They're both tanking their teams to get a high draft pick. It's just like they do in the NBA, Big C. And these coaches, they fire a referee at the same time. Some of these coaches are saying, no, we're not tanking, we're just trading all of our top players. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about the NFL and tanking. You look around and say, okay, what player out there in college football is immediately going to turn around a football team? You already got all pro players on your team. They're #1 draft picks. And you get rid of them. I mean, when you look at the Giants, they traded their #1 pick from this year to New Orleans. You know, the defensive back, Apple. They sent him. He was their #1 pick this year. So if you can't pick a guy this year, how are you going to pick a guy next year? And you're saying that you're trying to position yourself to have extra picks to get a quarterback in the first round. You know, you can get a quarterback now, but, you know, if you're talking about, you know, scrapping your season, where does that put the rest of the players on your team? Here's the Raiders. Everybody said, well, they got 3 #1 draft picks next year. Well, if you look at their offense, how many #1 draft picks did they have on their offense already? You know, Cooper was a #1 draft pick. The left tackle out of UCLA was the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah.
Marshawn Lynch was the number 1 draft pick, Charlton. They had plenty of them.
Yeah.
But, now you're saying, well, the young guys in college are better than the guys that we have in the pros.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time believing that. You hope everybody gets an opportunity. But, what Gruden wants to do is say, hey, I'm going to Las Vegas if we make it to Las Vegas with my players.
Yeah.
I'm going to establish what I have. But I want anybody who has evaluated Gruden this year to think about this. Whatever you do for work, whether you're an auto mechanic, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a construction worker.
Yeah.
Take 10 years off from what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just stop. Take 10 years off. Come back and see if the industry has not changed. If you're up to speed.
Yep.
How long is it going to take you to get back in tune 10 years from now from what they're doing today? Everything has changed. So you go back, if you've been in your industry for over 10 years, think about where it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And now you're coming back in. Has things changed? Would you be able to walk right in and pick up where you are?
That's a good point, Big C. And everybody knows it's all fair and love and war. We're big on Google, as I tell my friends in Ethiopia, Big C. Google John Gruden's record without Tony Dungy's players. He's 78 wins and 85 losses. Just Google it, Big C. I want to say tonight's NFL game, Thursday Night Football, Big C style. We have the Houston at Miami, the Texans at the Dolphins. Big C, them Texans, the people in Dolphin territory, they got to be careful, because them good about some Texans, they will eat some dolphin meat, Big C. They will eat some dolphin meat, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, once you put it in the smoker, everything falls apart.
It all falls apart.
But you gotta look at this game. Houston has gotten healthy on defense.
Yeah.
They have their 3 starters. They have Merciless. They have Watts. They have Clowney.
Yeah.
And you got to understand, they're playing against a guy that they didn't like when he was on their roster last year.
Yep.
Brock Osweiler.
Yeah.
So they're going to be pinning back their ears coming after him. Osweiler won his first game, Charlton, as a Dolphins quarterback.
Yeah.
He didn't fare so well last week. Even though he had a decent game, they lost the game.
Yeah.
But Frank Gore has played amazingly well this year. He and Adrian Peterson to be senior citizen running back in the NFL and really surprised people.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson is not the quarterback that he was last year after 7 games, Charlton. He had set the world on fire with 17 touchdowns. He only has 7 this year.
Yeah.
But when Hopkins, his wide receiver, Charlton, is on pace to have a 1,600-yard receiving season. I gave this game, Charlton, tonight to the Houston team because just their feelings against the quarterback on the opposite side, Brock Osweiler, who came in and stole $37 million last year, Charlton.
Yeah, inside job. Yeah, that's funny. I mean, it's funny how you look at players that cannot get an opportunity after they have great success, especially African-American players, where there's Doug Williams, 5 Super Bowl passes in the first half. The Redskins blew out the Broncos. He made Elway look bad so the NFL wouldn't give him a job again. Kaepernick beat up on Brady. He beat up on Rodgers. He also beat up on Ryan. And he can't find a job today because they were too good. And I know we've had so many stories of that, Big C. I just hope all's fair in love and war. I do wish everybody the best, especially when it comes down to the talk about some of our nation's leaders and how we got to keep them safe. But I just hope that we can find a way to do that, and we want to make sure that everybody stays safe. I want to just get your thoughts, Big C, real quick as we finish up talking about some NFL, because 20 years ago in 1988, Barry Sanders won the Heisman Trophy. He was the greatest player in college football's history. With a single season of over 2,850 yards, he had 44 touchdowns, Big C. He beat out Troy Aikman and Rodney Peete, the quarterbacks for USC and UCLA. He rushed for 1,476 yards and 22 touchdowns. The nation's leading rusher is Darrell Henderson out of Memphis with 1,148 yards. Big C, give me your thoughts on those numbers.
Well, Charlton, when you think about that comparison, as we talk about being at the 7th game point of the college football season, and Darrell Henderson is leading the nation in rushing at Memphis.
Yeah.
Barry Sanders added another 1,400 yards in the next 5 games.
Wow.
When you think about that.
Yep.
1,400 yards he rushed in 5 games in his senior year at OK State, knocking out Rodney Peete and Troy Aikman in the Heisman Trophy ballot in Charlton.
Yeah.
And both of those guys were slated 1 and 2 as Heisman frontrunners at the start of that season. But Barry Sanders, Charlton, did something that was rarefied air.
Yeah.
You know, and he just ran on everybody. You think about where backs are today in college football and how they're looked at. I think, you know, everybody raved on Saquon Barkley. And all you had to do was look at Barkley's numbers last year.
Yeah.
They were half of what Barry Sanders had in his senior year.
Yeah.
You know, Darrell Henderson, ironically, has rushed for as many yards as Saquon Barkley had last season, and he still has games to go in this season.
Yep.
You look at Sonny Michel, who went to the Patriots. Those are the two backs that were drafted in the first round.
Yep.
But Barry Sanders was, you know, just a superstar.
He's amazing.
You know, he made everybody realize that they weren't working hard enough.
Yep.
I think that was his greatest attribute to football. Being as great a player as he was, he made everyone realize that they weren't working hard enough. He was a guy, when he came to college, Charlton, he only ran a 4.5 840.
Wow.
But, you know, when he left college, he ran a 4.3 840, Charlton.
Yep.
You know, here's a guy that, you know, his vertical leap increased 9 inches while he was in college, Charlton. He worked. He was a workaholic. Everybody talked about Jerry Rice and his work ethic, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, Walter Payton probably set the stand as far as work ethic.
Yeah.
Big Barry Sanders came along. He didn't get the notoriety because he wasn't in that sexy position on the West Coast.
Yeah.
You know, like we talk about with Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Is that people don't talk about Drew Brees because he's a short, diminutive player.
Yeah.
Just like Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
He doesn't play on one of the coast, Charlton. He's not in one of the major markets. But when you look at what the guy did on the field, it's undisputable.
Yep.
And there's no comparison. I mean, everybody will always say that Jim Brown is the greatest running back ever.
Yeah.
Emmitt Smith is the all-time rushing leader.
Yeah.
But there'll never be another Barry Sanders.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, the fact that he retired when he was healthy because he wanted to stay healthy. I want to say Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, sprawling capital in the highlands bordering the Great Rift Valley. They also followed Big C sports, Big C, back in the day. There was a man by the name of Drew Bodini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble, Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm going to take a step back in this date and time, Charlton. 22 years ago tonight, in Shea Stadium in New York, the Boston Red Sox were up in the World Series.
Yep.
1 out to go, Charlton. There was a ground ball hit to first baseman Bill Buckner, and the ball mysteriously went through his glove and his leg, which allowed the New York Mets to come on and win that game, Charlton. Not only that, propelled them to the World Championship in 1986, a day that was living infamy in Boston, the Bill Buckner bundle at first base.
Well, they call it a miracle. And speaking of miracles, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We always want to tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.